All right, now I can record. We'll give Enrique a second, but this is the editor group backlog refinement meeting for December 15th. And I didn't fill out the agenda with any high-level topics, but open to ideas. If there's anything in particular you want to talk about before we move right into the workflow or the issue list. Cool, I'll take that as a no. I'll share my screen and we can just look at the list and pick them off. Let's see. So yeah, this is all the issues that have backlog refinement label assigned to them. I think, yep, there. I just added one. Let's go bottom up. So let's start with this one. This is something that I believe I actually have not looked at this one too much. So
yeah, I took a stab at it. And so the problem is not that we are not honoring wiki access level, but when we create a project through the API, we do not honor any access level attribute at all, not only wiki access level. So you cannot, I don't know, you cannot disable issues by default when you create a new project. So there must be something that is not taking all the access level attributes and creates the project with them. So I'm not sure if that issue is ours or if we want to take a look at that, because I think the solution, the fix for that, to fix the wiki access level thing, will also fix the other attributes as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know where that lives.
The problem is that technically, from the description, there is no group who would own this, right? So it's not like any specific group thing, but we have an issue assigned and described specifically for Wiki. So I would say this is something that we should take care of.
Yeah, but for example, now Eric opened another issue saying that we are not honoring page access level. And this was closed because the person couldn't reproduce it anymore. I don't know if it was Vladimir or who, but it's a wide range issue. So it depends on whether we want to tackle it or not.
But in our case, in case of the issue that mentions Wiki, we can reproduce it, right?
Come again, Dennis?
The issue that mentions Wiki, we can reproduce it, right? So
yes,
I mean,
yes.
we cannot do the same thing as Marcus did, like saying, well, we cannot reproduce it, let's close it now.
Well, we can change the title of this issue and also the description and say that we are not honoring issues access level.
Oh man, and like, and yeah, then still we won't have any target group for that one.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I don't know which group would be responsible for that.
At the bottom, it says an old deprecated field does work. So it sounds sort of like this is just something, there was like a field rename and this got missed or something.
Yeah, exactly like that,
possibly. Yes. I mean, I think we could do it. It doesn't seem like it's that hard of a thing to track down and fix. It's just putting data in the database from an API.
Yes. So I agree. I mean, if there's no other group that owns the API, which was going to be my question, like just there's no global group. why not us, right? Like we are all GitLab. We should be good citizens to the API. And if there's a bug related to Wiki, but we can fix it for everybody else that's having this problem, then sure.
I'm just not completely entirely agreeing with the priority and severity in this particular case. It's just like,
sure,
it's by far not 3, both of those.
Mm-hmm.
It's like severity. Okay, there is no workaround to this, right? But
yes, I mean there is. You can use
the wiki enabled.
Exactly.
Then it's just severity 4, priority 4. I would say it's our way of saying, well, yes, we will tackle it at some point in the future, someday, maybe. That's what priority 4 is about.
I would argue for a higher priority because this is security related. People are expecting that they're to be giving a restricted access level based on the documentation, I presume, and it's actually more permissive than what they are expecting.
If we're talking about general access level thing, right? But if we're talking in regards to the wiki, as this particular issue mentions, well, for wiki, it's not priority 3, but on the,
I think visibility of a wiki, at time of project creation is not necessarily the highest priority, right? Like if it's not populated with any content and it's just set to the wrong access, it's not harming anything. But if it goes overlooked and you start adding sensitive data in there or something like that, yeah, I think Chad's point is right on. I'm curious how many people create projects this way, like just to do like an assessment of impact. Clearly enough that this bug gets reported in multiple issues, but
only through provisioning or like scripts or third-party tools.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So I think the takeaway is we should rename this to be more reflective of the scope of work. Would that likely change your assessment of the weight, or do you still think this is like a 2 when we do pick it up?
I think it would be a 2. I think the implementation would be the same.
Well, it's obviously not in 13.7, so I'm going to so those related issues, when was this one? This was 13.2. It's been around for a while. And this one was created 6 months ago also. I'm gonna say, let's tentatively schedule this for 13.9 and take a look at it when we're doing 13.9 planning, but we'll get it. This is
for 13.9, we will count with another person in backend.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, we'll be able to, that might be a good one to get ramped up on too. Maybe pair with someone else and take a look at it together. I don't know how to phrase this. Like, it doesn't honor anything. Like, it doesn't honor access levels. Across multiple features. that's close enough. We get the idea of the scope now. So yeah, let's take a look at this in 13.9, unless something more urgent comes up, but I'll keep it in mind with priority for that. Interesting, interesting. I also just learned today that you can create projects from the API. I don't know much about our backend API, which is, this is all learning for me. Cool. Oh, I can take the backlog refinement off there. Done. This is the one I was looking at that came in, and I think, yeah, Roman pinged me on this. This is an interesting one that was a request from someone.
Yeah, but this one I don't think is ours. Totally not ours.
Yeah.
So I don't know why.
Maybe in source code?
Yeah, totally. Because this happens when you open a repository. It's a Python repository. You don't have a README, but you have this init py file. And instead of opening the README, you open this one. So I don't think editor is involved at all in this process.
Got it. So yeah, just to describe my understanding too, that's what I understood. It was, you know, basically we have our README rendered here in nice markdown output. But for Python files, they don't use readme.markdown, but they would like something alternatively to point to, the init file rendered instead. And then it goes on to describe in the issues, like maybe this has some cascading logic around other types of files that might be used there. So yeah, I guess you're right. This isn't really the editor. This is more, I guess, source
project
code.
overview, like whoever owns that.
Yeah, I think the repository view is source code.
Yeah, I think it's source code. I mean, I remember there is some method in the repository class that says README file, in which you cache the README file of the repository. I think there we should update the logic and say, if this project is Python, look as well for this specific file, if no README is found. So that's why I think it's source code.
And with after the realignment, I just want to make sure the PM is right. So that's let me just look it up in another window. So Daniel, right. Cool. Well, we'll just get him to confirm before we take our label off, but I tend to agree this doesn't seem like anything related to an editor.
Yeah, that's actually on the tree class, the README Boolean.
Okay. It's also rather obscure. Like I mean, I know Python's a big popular language, but you know, this is very specific logic for one language, maybe two. But anyway, I'll let Daniel prioritize that. Oh, let's see. This, I'm going to skip over the settings one real quick. I want to talk about this one because we haven't talked much about static site editor, and this one just needs a little bit of work. So to give some context, because it came up in the comments here, the static site editor is available to any project in theory that uses Markdown as their content and can send the right URL path to the static site editor. So you can kind of backwards engineer the link that we've created in the middleman template to work with other projects. But the easiest way to get it up and running is when you create a new project to choose the template for middleman static site editor. So if I create a new project, I'll choose a template and we have a middleman template. So I'll just actually click preview and you can see here is the template. Our work on the template was part of our first NVC, and we've gone through and made a few tweaks, but we've added some new features since, including a new configuration file that allows you right now only to define the directory that you want to put uploaded images and assets. So when you upload you can upload an image from the static site editor, and in order to put it in the right place, there's a configuration file. This template, though, doesn't have a pre-populated configuration file. So this issue was simply to sort of update the template to reflect that there is a configuration file. We can use the default of, I think it's just source images or something like that, and leave it there. But I feel like it should reflect in here that, the static site editor configuration file should be represented there so people can access it.
So a little more context on this one. I just dropped in a link, and also I put this in the doc. So this should be almost no work because we've already figured out how the config file works. So there's this other project we called Static Site Editor Unfiltered, which was where when there was a static site editor dedicated team, we would dog food that by updating our status on things. But even though we're not doing that anymore, it's still important as a place where we could dog food stuff. So for these config file changes, I've already implemented them in there and made sure that they work. So this is really just a matter of taking what is already there and putting it in the template repository for when people create a new project, like Eric said, that it gets created, and probably adding, some more inline documentation around that, because that was our original plan, to make the original template file sort of self-documenting. We should put that note on this issue too. But other than that, this is basically no work, copying the config file defaults and that we already have from that unfiltered. And there's some issue around the config file somewhere that specifies like more details about how we'd want that inline documentation to be, and the tone of it, and even the phrasing.
So almost no work sounds a lot like a 1 to me, but
Yep, pretty
okay.
Config file's done. It's just a template.
I'm not gonna, I'll just take the milestone off for now. I'm not gonna assume work on the static site editor at the moment, but this would be a good one for a coffee break or something like that. If somebody wanted to pick it up, it should get done.
And documenting that stuff I just said is probably a great thing for our OKRs of adding stuff to the team page. That should be in there. Is there a static site editor section in the team page yet? There probably should be, huh?
Not sure.
Okay, I'll make a note to look at that.
That issue is already inside an epic, but should we switch this issue to the create editor improvements single site editor, or leave it in this existing epic? Oh,
so good point. I have been working on something that we can take a little diversion, and I'll show you the skeleton of our editor group epic headquarters. So this is what I have been working on the past few days. All I've really done is built out navigation and settings, and there's a lot of work to just fill out the details in those epics. But my preference would be to move, actually what I can do is add the epic here for static site. Is it gonna, no, I need the link.
I really love how you do this, Eric. Like having all of the epics in one big hierarchy really fits the way I think about things and makes it easier for me.
Oh, I'm glad. So this is how I think too. So this category strategy static site editor needs some attention. It's not up to date in that we are already viable, so I can move all these. But ideally, what I would have for every one of our categories is these sort of thematic buckets of work. In this case, that one is around configuration. So that is the customize the static site editor configuration behavior. That's the primary goal, is to make it more customizable, I guess. And then in there are the actual user stories and the work to be done. So yes, these are improvements and features, but I would prefer to bucket them thematically within a category strategy so that we can link to them more clearly as far as like tracks of work that we might pick up, or potentially like align them to OKRs, or just higher level goals with each category. And then in there, if there aren't ones that relate specifically to a work stream or a theme, then I think there's like gonna definitely be a sort of catch-all, like improve the user experience of the static site editor, or improve the performance of the web IDE, or something like that, where we can just kind of bucket general improvements.
And for example, like I said, I know we wrote in detail like how we want to document the config file, and I know it's because of this organization, it's in one of those config ones that is completed, but right below this other one we were just looking at.
Yeah, so this is the one, you know, so in theory this would be top down prioritize, and then oh, so yeah, a good example is like I was refining this one last night, configure the markdown syntax preferences, because I wanted to reference this as a roadmap, actually as a direction item in our release post related to the work Enrique did to split the commits for formatting changes separate from the intentional changes in the static site editor, which is a incremental iterative improvement towards this, which I referenced in the release post and needed to write a little more detail about. So keeping them, you know, together in those related epics, you know, helps me organize them, but open to feedback, of course.
Eric, I have a question about this epic and like this organization of the epics. So previously we were adding to another epics, and we cannot, as Enrique rightfully states, that we cannot assign issues to more than one epic. So does this epic that you've created replace the epics that we were putting things into previously? And if yes, what do we do? Like, do we go on and manually move those issues we've added to the previous epics already into this one, or like how this is supposed to work?
Yeah, so I mean, I do think we have, so the ideal solution would be you could have them multiple epics so that you could track different sort of relational concepts, but with this structure, we've basically what I imagine is we've created sort of transient buckets for us to do some organization, and then when they do fit a theme like this, I can move them. I don't think you have to worry about moving them to the related buckets. Ideally, the issues show up on our issue board. You know, it doesn't matter what epic they're in. The end goal would be to be able to use something like GitLab's roadmap feature and show, you know, that we're working on epics in a more like targeted and sequential way, and be able to project out a little further. That's why I would prefer sort of thematic or like feature driven epics to hold the issues. So we wouldn't ship necessarily an epic called customize the static site editor. I'll go to some of the ones we closed in here to use them as an example. Well, actually those did ship as individual work streams, but using the WYSIWYG markdown editor, right? Like this spanned 4 releases, right? So we have a high level goal for our maturity. Maybe that's loosely defined right now, but that just means I need to spend a little more time defining success criteria for that epic and make it clear like when we can close it, right? Right now, the complete maturity of the static site editor, in my mind, won't be achieved until there's some flexibility around configuration and you can make it work with multiple types of projects. So however we define success for that epic isn't necessarily going to be closed by one work stream or one issue, certainly not one issue. But within that theme, there might be 8 or 10 epics worth of work, and one of those epics might be something we work on for a milestone. One of those epics might need to have sub-epics of their own. But ultimately, I think the way this ladders up is, in a perfect world, we would have projected and organized ourselves around the category maturity and say, all of these are complete now, let's run a category maturity scorecard and see if we can validate that we're ready to, graduate to the next level. In this case, we did it a little early, and I haven't moved these in to complete, which is fine, and I can just do that. But I think that would be my goal for each of our categories, and then the headquarters. Well, I can go right up here. Would be the place where we can just keep all of them organized and then talk about our higher level group strategies and priorities. In this case, in here, I would reference, we're supposed to have 50% of our time for the near future dedicated to settings and nav, and, like these other categories are kind of on hold,
Eric,
that kind
but
of stuff.
I don't know, and this is following Dennis' comments. We already have, Roman created several epics for each feature, one for improvements and one for technical depth.
I was going to jump in there. What I think could happen there, I agree to Dennis's point. There could be an existing structure like of nested epics that don't necessarily fit into this structure. I still think this structure is good because it gives us a perspective of like what we're delivering, what our OKRs are, the category maturity. But in that case, I think we could still put them in this structure, but if there was some organization that is still valuable for it, because epics are a tree and you can only pick one, I think you could work with Eric to change those to labels, right? And still be able to use labels to group them or organize them or find them in the way you were previously with epics, but still have the epics or issues reorganized under this framework.
I'm just a bit worried that technically, like when we were creating those epics previously, we already had the issue that we cannot keep an issue in 2 different epics, right? For example, my issues for editor light, I cannot keep them in the editor light maturity epic, and I had to move them here. Now we have to move them somewhere else, and we don't even have the editor light category in the HQ issue. So I just would like us to avoid this chaotic movement of the issues and sort of set up on some structure that we all can use and understand where to look for the things instead of improving the processes is good, but doing the work is good as well. And looking for the information, like if I have some time, like what epic do I go to pick the issues from? Like which one has the priority? Where do I look for the things to work with? And if I have this sort of disbalanced structure, how do we solve this?
So I think editor light is actually a good example of why this I like this structure from a PM and company perspective, because editor light is really, it's a technical implementation detail that will span multiple, product areas, OKRs, and deliverables. So if we have to pick a way to structure our top level view of it, to me, it makes sense that from this structure, which reflects how management is expecting us to deliver work and how we're going to be judged on category maturity. And if we have to group things like editor light, because epics are a tree and not a DAG, we'll use labels for that if they need to be grouped. And if it has to be like a hierarchy of labels or something we come up with to capture like the technical direction of things, that's sort of a parallel view of it, as opposed to this one, which is like, what are we actually delivering as a team to the company and the product?
Sorry, but for me, it's more difficult to keep track of the epic and also the labels at the same time. I kind of lose focus of what is important. If I had I have more capacity, where I should look for the next important thing to work on. I think.
And what things have higher priority? Like, if I find something in this epic, will it bring more value to the product or the issues stored in the HQ epic? I don't know.
Well,
We
those
wouldn't.
are
Yeah, I mean, I think
single axes like priority. What do I, where do I look for things, which are more suited to labels than this, which is a hierarchy of like, what is our team doing and how for the company?
No, labels do not necessarily produce any sort of hierarchy and priority to me. Label is just label. It just marks whether this issue relates to some category or not.
Right. But what I'm saying is, if you want to answer the question, like what is available for me to pick on to work next, like that should be something that is prioritized for this upcoming milestone, right? Which is
not necessarily.
Well,
like if I'm done with my deliverables, what do I
you can
pick?
work on the next milestone. But if it's something random you want to pick out, like for your own interest, like, okay, you can have your own list of things that you're interested in, but those are all like single lists of things. They're not a hierarchy describing how is the editor team delivering on our OKRs and categories across the 7 things we're responsible for, which is, I think, if we can pick one choice for epics, and we only can because there's a tree, that is the appropriate one, because that's what our team is held accountable for.
Right. So, but in your model that you described now, like, what do we do with these epics? Like, we have the HQ as the main source, like, is the single source of truth, right? What do we do with these epics then?
So these will get moved. I mean, this is
moved into the HQ.
Yeah. So all I would say is I would probably name this something different than just general improvements. This might be viable maturity or something like that, or
Okay.
quarter 1, whatever we call that parent epic would get moved into one single source of truth, like you said. And I think this is a good example. Like toolbar for editor light is a great thematic epic, right? It's got work incrementally. Eventually we will have a toolbar for editor light like that. I don't think you need to change this. I'm just saying we probably would move this under that hierarchy so that we can keep one single source. As far as like priority for what to work on next and what's going to bring the most value, I think we need to just have a conversation about that. If there's more capacity, I can happily tell you what I think we should be working on, and I'm open to input about what you all think we should be working on or can work on given the time that you have. I think stretch labels are a good way to build that little backlog if you have time, but obviously if there's something you're passionate about like editor light, or if there's a desire to just switch context for some reason to work in a different area or address some tech debt, which certainly would be a bucket within each category's label, just a like general tech debt. I'm not recommending we change that. I think we need a place to store just back-end improvements and performance and test writing and things like that we need to remember should certainly be kept in the category epics as well. I mean,
as long as we store the things in one place, that's fine. Like if we have everything that we put in these epics in the HQ epic, that should be fine. And if we have the category for editor light, that would be great as well. Yeah, because it's not the implementation. I can see how it is an implementation detail, and web ID is anyhow different.
Yeah, and honestly, I need to work on whether or not that is a formal category or if it's an implementation detail, how we organize that. I mean, it can have an epic. That's nothing formal. We can just call editor light. It can be called editor light improvements, whatever we want to call it. About how we communicate it outwardly, though, is what I need to still resolve. But yeah, I think we're on the same page. This is certainly a work in progress. This is meant to be the single source of truth. I don't want you having to go between multiple places. I need something that's a little more product level, user facing, like thematically organized. And I don't think we should keep things in two places. With epics, we can't keep things in two places. So I would prefer some buckets that represent user value, and then within those individual work streams or features or buckets of technical debt that we can pull from.
Right. And I was like, as in terms of editor light, it's important. It's critical to all of these things, but it's critical to more than one thing from an outward user facing and management looking down perspective. So if that's the view we have, like we have to somehow, in as convenient a way as possible, group the editor light via a different mechanism than epics, if that's what we're using them for.
Cool.
Good discussion. We're getting on the same
great
page about how we do things.
Mm-hmm.
Epics are still confusing. We're doing so much. If we run out of things to do, regularly, I don't think we're going to have that problem. But if we do, it's no problem.
Oh, I mean, I need to get ahead of you all. You move faster than me, so I need to get a better backlog of well-written issues. We have plenty of stuff from Web IDE and snippets and stuff like that, but I need to get ahead of the prioritization so we know what we should work on next. Okay, well, this one I think we can call refined enough. We know what needs to be done. And let's take a look at this wiki one.
I already submitted a fix. Well, there is this branch, but the specs are missing. So I think this would be a good candidate for a new hire for 13.9. It's a very easy fix.
Okay.
Although this is a very, very specific situation. So it only happens when the repository doesn't have when the project doesn't have a repository, and the main page has is created in ASCII-doc format. Okay, so this bug is not super urgent. It's an easy win, a quick win. But if we have more pressing matters, we could work on them instead of this one.
Mm-hmm.
So I would tentatively put 13.9, but if we have something more pressing to work on, we can just push this to 13.10 or 11.
Yeah, that does sound pretty obscure, but I'm all for easy wins. We're going to have a lot of work coming up, and I guess we can talk about settings in nav next in the next issue. I think we're going to be wrapping up a lot of the solution validation. I don't want to over promise or overbook ourselves with these quick wins.
Is this a good one to flag as a community contribution for the next hackathon?
That's a good question.
Do you have a bucket for those?
The hackathon, yeah, but I was only doing UI. I wonder if this makes sense for that. But as a community contribution, do you think it's something somebody would pick up?
There's already a link. I mean, if there's already a start on it in the branch, seems like it. Just one line.
Hmm.
That's the fix. Wiki link filter.
So here's what I'm going to do for now. I'll say,
I think the
That's
label
if it
is
isn't.
Yeah,
a
it's already hacked
subcommunity.
in. Yeah.
sorry, what was
Sorry.
that?
I was going to say that the label that we use is accepting merge requests. Yeah.
15 merge requests. Yeah.
We can also move this issue to the wiki improvements epic if we want, or technical debt or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to say backlog tech debt, and then let's say, I thought there was one that was like a good, it's probably maybe not a first contribution, but maybe it is. Isn't there one that's like, maybe they got rid of that label. It's like ideal for first contributions. Anyway,
I think
We'll revisit
I would
this.
change the weight.
change the weight.
Yeah, to 1.
Okay.
Like, if people know Rails and want to hack on it, and don't like, I don't think everyone necessarily has to be like a front end bug.
So I had created a label for some of our other UI stuff. I'll put hackathon candidate on there and discuss it with the person who's arranging the hackathon, which I need to follow up on anyway for the other ones that I included there. By the way, I guess we could look at that. I just went through our settings in Nav, so I guess there's 9 issues that I picked out that I thought might make a good hackathon candidate. They're mostly UI related or UX. And if you see anything else, please let me know. It'd be a great way to clear out some of our backlogs. I have this hackathon candidate label. Feel free to add it yourself and maybe ping me on the issue, and I'll chat with them. I think it's in January, so we have a couple weeks to line up those issues. Cool. Let's talk about this user menu one, which I brought into here mostly because Michael pinged me on Slack somewhere, some issue. I haven't opened up my 800 emails today to see where in context but he was asking, what needed to be done to, in there, our planning issue. Is this the same 2260? Yeah, so these are related, these two. So rethink the navigation bar user menu. This one is a little more clear, and so I would probably prefer moving forward with this one. But basically right now, our user menu has some patterns that aren't consistent with expectations, we'll say. There's areas that are not clickable that could be. There's some that open modals and some that go to settings. And I think the idea is that we would just update those links. So this one goes to the profile page. This opens the status modal, although in future iterations, we could potentially introduce the idea of setting the status right in the dropdown. I think this is a good iteration though. And then these links just get remapped into user settings, sections, profile, and preferences.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Let's say wait 1, and this is also seems like a good hackathon candidate.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to ping Michael on this and see if this proposal needs to be updated at all. But I believe this is the most accurate, so I'll say hackathon. I would like, if it doesn't get picked up in the hackathon, I think then 13.9 would be a great time to get this done. Or if it really is a 1 point and you finish up or are waiting for a review and you want to pick it up in 13.8, I won't complain.
Are you considering the hackathon label mutually exclusive with milestones? Like it has to be one or the other, or could it be both? Could you go ahead and throw this in 13.9 and have the hackathon label if somebody picks it up?
Yeah, I think they're not mutually exclusive. So yeah, I would say 13.9. And then I'm going to just let Michael know. What was the other one? Cool.
One thing I just thought of, completely unrelated. Do you want to make a note, Eric, to change the owner of the Zoom call or update the calendar if for the rest of them this month?
Oh yeah,
I will.
I'll make a note on my own. Yeah, that's a good point. Don't need to do that dance every time, and I will forget every time, and we'll have to do the same thing where we leave and join again. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, this is pretty straightforward. I think this is an example though of some of the settings work that I'm expecting we start picking up in the coming milestones, right? So we've been thinking a lot about these little consistency improvements on the left-hand nav, and those have gotten a little more complicated. And what we've been trying to do is pick up work that's a little, I don't know, lower impact really, because we didn't want to disrupt baseline measurements from the UX team. And we're still working on solution validation for some of the more like significant issues. So this is a good example of one of the ones that Michael's been working on. We'll also have some related to the top nav in general, like the projects and groups button, but I didn't quite get around to finalizing an issue for us to refine. That might be a good one in the next issue refinement session. We're almost out of time anyway, but yeah, I think this is a good quick win for consistency's sake, and it comes up a lot actually, surprisingly, in our usability score feedback. And clearly other people have been thinking about it for months and months, so good to know that it's a quick win. We've got a couple, let me see, what if we go till the top of the hour? We got a few minutes. Let's just clear out this last one for snippets. I put this in here. Oh, Dennis dropped, but he created the issue. I was going through this epic in general, and so I thought it was a good idea to maybe pull out some of these issues to refine and make sure I understand the severity and priority a little more clearly. Multi-file snippets using one editor in multiple instances, that sounds like it could have performance benefit, or at least impact page load time in some way. I don't know though, so I'm curious maybe to understand what what the upside to this issue is, if it's necessary to do now. It looks like you've talked about this before, but I added the label so we can discuss it again.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, this was a performance improvement, and also I think, but don't take me for granted, I think this was also about editing the snippet in line. I think, but yeah, I remember mostly the performance part of this. I don't fully remember the front end problem that they were facing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's it seems like it was performance, and it was just waiting on those other two issues to be implemented to lay the framework for doing it. More memory footprint on the page than performance or page load time.
Well, that sounds great. I think maybe then this would be a good epic to run through in our next issue refinement. A couple of these we have already scheduled for 13.8. I think they were stretch or not necessarily labeled deliverable. So hopefully they get picked up. But if not, we'll talk about wrapping up the work. I'm just a big fan of clearing the deck here and making sure that we don't drop anything that's important. So I'll just try and understand exactly, how important the leftover work is, and we'll get it prioritized appropriately from there. But yeah, I think we can just wrap then. We don't need to do this until Dennis can weigh in on the front end stuff. I think we made some good progress though, and almost cleared out our list, which is great. I'll stop sharing here. So I think that's it. I will see you all in a day or so. Yeah, tomorrow for our milestone kickoff. And if you can make it this afternoon on my time, Chad usually tries to join, but our Product and UX Weekly is today as well. So lots of team meetings today, and I'll see you then. Thanks for joining, and thanks for giving the input and feedback.
See ya.
Take care.